There we go. Sorry, guys. Had the wrong comment thing turned on. So, hi, everyone. Juliana here. How are you all doing? Gonna scroll through here and kind of catch up. Oh, we got people from everywhere. Wow. Missouri. And I'm from Missouri originally, Southeast Missouri. I saw someone from Southwest Missouri, but I'm over south of Cape Girardeau. So, but I now live in Pittsburgh. So hello to Kim that lives here in Pittsburgh too. So, all right. So we have some questions. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Like I said, I'm kind of scrolling through here. And yeah, so I hope you guys have been enjoying the summit and have had a chance to check out my presentation. So if you have any questions related to my presentation or just about organization in general, I'll be happy to answer them. I know I saw somebody asking about the stencil stuff, and I do believe Tim rubs over the stencils with the archival ink and or paint, maybe one or the other of those. It might be paint, black paint, and then you can kind of wipe off the excess and it stays down in the groove so you can kind of see the number better. All right. Someone wants to know how to store the refill ink bottles. I don't own very many of those. So I actually have mine in just some little boxes. One of the storage things I share in my presentation that I love for these are these storage bins from scrapbook.com, and they're taller. They're like, let's see how tall they are. They're like 4 inches tall, so I don't know if that would work for you or not, but I love these for storing all of my paints and sprays and the few inks and refill inks and stuff like that I do have. What is the tape you use to do temporary stick for your die cuts? I like holding it. I'm not sure what you're exactly referring to. If you're just needing something temporary, I like to use like a temporary tape runner. Another scrapbook.com product for me, but it's this yellow one, and it's just one of those dotted runners, and so you can use that to kind of hold things down temporarily, and then this will rub off with your finger or one of those like little rubber erasers. So anyway, hope that helps. My video, what is it about? Got a good question, I guess. Mine is on Tim Holtz storage and organization ideas. So I'm a huge Tim Holtz fan. I'm also a maker for him and his brand. So I own a lot of his products. So obviously that was, that's the focus, but you can, I think, take a lot of the suggestions I've shared and incorporate similar type products. So like I was saying with the sprays and how I do my ink pad, you can kind of see them over here. Embellishments, stencils, stamps. I've got kind of all of his different kinds of products in different ways. So you might, again, I think you could take a lot of it and put it to something else if you don't have a lot of Tim Holtz brand stuff. Do I have the folders that Tim has for his stamps? I do not use the folders. I tried those and that did not work for me. I like to have my stamps open and out in where I can see them. I like to flip through my stamps. So I actually have mine in some bins and I cover that in my video. And that works really, really well for me. Do you think the labels need to be inked or are the download colors close enough? I have the printed ones over there on my ink pads. And they're close enough for me if I just need a quick reference, but I also have a swatch book if I'm really needing to know exactly what color I'm wanting. So I think it's just really a personal preference for you. I like to know the name of the inks. So that's why I went with the ones that have the color and the name printed on them for my ink pads. How do I store my clear stamps? I don't have a ton of clear stamps at this point in my crafting career. But I have mine in bins, which there's mine are actually in a couple of different places in bins. But again, I like to be able to flip through my stamps and my dies. That method just works really well for me. So whether it's those clear refrigerator bins or uh, there's ones from scrapbook.com that hold different sizes that are not plastic. If you're looking for something that's not a plastic, so you're looking for an alternative that's a little more recyclable or earth friendly. So yeah, storage is actually stored. There is no problem with your ink pads, the distress ink pads being on their side. That is a great question, and I know there are a lot of people that ask that. Um, I have mine hanging up on the wall in this kind of position. Originally had them sitting on the table behind me, and that was just taking up too much space. So I think it's really just a matter of where you have the space to store them and what works for you, but they are totally fine to be on their sides. So it's just the way they're formulated, it's not a problem. All right. Rubber stamps. I put mine in, you can kind of see behind me here. These are some bins from scrapbook.com, and these are the Tim Holtz rubber stamps. So these are like really the only rubber stamps I have are the ones from Tim. And again, so I can flip through these, and I cover this in my video. If you've seen the video and you have a specific question about it, let me know for sure. How do I store my distress embossing glazes? Okay, those are in a drawer. Now that I'm saying that, I'm not sure if I covered that in my video or not. But I think I did. But anyway, they're in a drawer. I just I've got the IKEA Calyx units, and then I just have the IKEA drawers that fit those cubbies, and I just have the glazes in the drawer with my other embossing tools, and like I have a little distress tin that I keep my embossing tools in. So like my embossing inks and the markers that are embossing markers, and one of those little powder packs and anti-static pouches, and kind of keep all that together in a drawer. So, all right, it's good questions, guys. These are awesome. Thank you. And I am so glad I think Justine's behind the scenes helping me with the questions. So thank you. So when working with inks and sprays, you think it helps to keep all products of the same color family together? I think that's a very personal preference. I like to have all my inks together, and I have all my distress inks on one side, and then my oxide inks are all together. I um, I have my paints in a separate place and my sprays in a separate place because I don't typically do a lot of mixing of those when I'm creating. So, like if I'm going to paint, I'm going to paint. If I'm going to spray, I'm going to spray. So then if that's what I want to work with, then I'll go and get those and bring them to my desk to work with. But I think that's probably definitely more of a creative flow question. Like, how do you create and what works for you? So, having all the colors together is helpful for you, then, go for it. What do you have the stamps on? Okay, so the Tim Holtz stamps come on that they come on this. So this is part of the packaging, and it's just a acetate sheet, and then the rubber comes on it like that. So there's no plastic. I mean, they come in a plastic bag when you purchase them, which I don't keep that because I get in and out of them too much and I rip it in 2 seconds. So yeah, it's just a plastic, like acrylic kind of thing. I don't know if it's acrylic, maybe yes. It's thicker than acetate. It's got a good, it's very sturdy. So okay, for my pops of color, that is a totally Tiffany stadium organizer, and there I do have a link to that in my on like the page where my presentation is. I've got a link to a lot of like my organization and storage things, and that's linked on there. But yeah, it works great so far. But they keep adding more colors, so eventually it's going to be full. So, how do you get that job? Not sure which job you're referring to. Um, Maybe you're referring to the maker for Tim Holtz. That is just an invitation from Tim. There was nothing that I applied for. They reached out to me and just asked that I, um, become a maker for them. So yeah, I feel very, very, very blessed to have been given that opportunity for sure. Embossing folders. I have mine in a bin as well. And again, that is just covered in my video. I've got mine in some kind of cute wood storage bins that I got from Hobby Lobby, but they've been discontinued. But there are also some great ones from scrapbook.com that are like for their small envelope organizer, they call it, and the embossing folders and actually the Sizzix die packages fit in those really well. So those are a great idea for storing those. How would you store the distressed ink cubes? I actually do not own any of the ink cubes. I just started off with the full-size pads years ago, and maybe even before they had even started with the mini ink cubes. So I do know a lot of people love the stamp and storage drawer unit things to keep them organized. I think again, it's just a matter of what works for you. I know Tim's got a little tin that will hold them. So I think there's a lot of options out there for storing them. I've also seen people using like some of the makeup drawers and stuff that you can get like on Amazon, those like clear container ones that work. Ooh, how often do you purge? That is like, yeah, I am a hardcore purger. Declutterer, whatever word you prefer for it. I actually don't find it hard to part with my products. I just, I've always been very selective on not growing my space. Like I stay in the space that I have. And so I really try to limit adding more bins and more closets and more drawers and things like that. So when the unit gets full, then I know I need to go through and kind of uh, purge through those, and from there, then it's just a matter of like, have I ever used it? Is it something I'm going to see myself using again? In my situation, it's a little bit unique. Like if something's retired and no longer available, I don't tend to keep those things because when I'm showing something to inspire you guys and you can't get it, that's very frustrating. So I do try to limit doing that sort of thing. But I do tend to purge pretty regularly, probably every few months. I go through my stuff and kind of clear out, and then I donate things. So, what do I prefer for stamping? I love both of them, and but not for stamping. So I like your question specifically about stamping. If I'm going to stamp with my Tim brand products, I'm either going to use the oxide inks or I'm going to use the archival inks. And I actually would prefer the archival inks over the oxides just because it's a permanent ink, and then I don't have to worry about adding ink or sprays on top of it and it, you know, bleeding or running once I add that liquid and water to things. Um, so yeah. My ink pad holders are from Stamp and Storage, and those are linked in my on my page too with the class. And I love them, absolutely love them. They're great quality, and you can get them to where they either hang or they don't. It's up to you, and you can get different sizes, configurations based on what kinds of ink pads you have. These are for specifically for Tim's, but they also make them for all the other brands. So I've got another one on the other side of the room that's got different ink pads in it, like Concord and Ninth and Catherine Pooler, and yeah. So do I go to crops? If so, any tips for home storage of travels well? I maybe once a year get to a crop, and so I kind of like hodgepodge it together a little bit. I got just some plastic totes that I've gotten at like Staples that have lids that snap onto them that are small that I can, easily carry. And then I just kind of pack up, my inks and try to kind of plan a little bit like what I'm going to work on. So like if there's certain theme that I'm working on, like if it's Halloween or whatever, then I would take, I'm not going to take, well, I guess you could take pink, but I probably wouldn't take pink to work on Halloween. So yeah. Do you clean up between projects? Yes, I can. I am a very neat crafter from what anyone has ever told me. I really, if it gets too messy, my brain creativity kind of closes off. So I do definitely clean up in between every project. So as far as multiple projects at once, not hardly ever. No, I kind of get one done and go on to the next. Difference between the distress inks and the oxide inks. Just kind of quickly, distress inks are a dye-based ink, and they are water reactive. And oxide inks are kind of what they refer to as like a hybrid ink. So it's kind of a mixture of dye inks and pigment inks. And but it's still water reactive. So a lot of pigment inks are more slower drying, and like you can sometimes add like embossing powder to them. But the oxide inks and the distress inks both react to water in very different ways and just give you really cool effects when they do that. So that's, yeah, very quick dry bone question, but great one. Do you stamp sentiments in bulk? I do not stamp sentiments in bulk. I tend to do sentiments as I need them. When I've tried this in the past, I ended up with this pile of sentiments and would find them later on and had not used any of them because they didn't fit what I was wanting. So that system does not work for me. So when I purge, I do not sell them. No, I've got friends that I donate stuff to that are other fellow crafters. Or I've got a friend of mine that takes them to her church that has like a group of people that do handmade cards and stuff for the church family. And so, yeah, I really just try to donate it. So I've given some to a teacher, schools and stuff like that. So just try to find a new home for it where it can be loved again. So how do I file my stamps? Alphabetical. I put my stamps mostly kind of by theme. So I've got a huge chunk of Christmas stamps and a huge chunk of Halloween stamps because I really love those holidays. And then everything else is kind of divided by theme, kind of. If you're familiar with Tim's products, he doesn't get too themey outside of Christmas and Halloween. So, I mean, he does kind of have, stuff that's fits kind of spring or, maybe that's like, so I would like put my florals together, things that are more steampunk or masculine together. So that's kind of how I have mine done up. What would I suggest to start with as a new user of Tim Holtz inks? Um, that's a tough one. Both of the inks are so different. I think it just really depends on your style and what you enjoy doing, and maybe you're so new you're not sure of that even. Um, the oxides are nice because they blend well, and you can stamp with them. They're not going to give you the same crispness of an image as stamp or inks that are made for stamping, such as a true pigment ink like the Catherine Pooler inks. Um, but yeah, I think it's I don't think you can go wrong with either one. So I love them both. They're my favorites. It's mostly what I use. Where do you purchase the shelves and storage holders for them? Not sure which shelves. Um, yeah, I'm not sure which shelves you're referring to. I mostly have IKEA shelving. So like this behind me and the ones off to the side, those are both IKEA. And so yeah. All right, so my stamps and dies are in bins, and I kind of covered this a little bit earlier, but just kind of as a reminder, I did try the albums for the stamps and just found that that closed storage did not work for my style of creating. I like to be able to see, so I have mine in bins so that I can flip through them, and that is something I do definitely cover in the presentation. So yeah, you might find that helpful to kind of see if you haven't had a chance to check it out. And I do the same thing with the dies. Both of them are in bins so I can flip through. So yeah. Both inks are blendable. Distress and oxide inks are both blendable. They just, I think some people find the oxides easier to blend, and I would agree with that. But that said, the paper you're working on is what makes any ink more blendable. So I personally prefer working with Tim's uh, distressed watercolor paper. That's probably my favorite paper. And working with whether you're using like the blending brushes or the foam blending tools, like I said, I find both of them to be really nice for blending. How often do you clean the open storage? Um, I don't guess like yeah, every now and then I just grab a little Swiffer and get in there and dust. So yeah. Store my brushes and blending tools. Okay, that's a good question. So um I keep my little blending foams, the top ones, just in a little tin, and I have one labeled oxide and one labeled distress ink. And then I just have the little handles on just a little vintage. So I don't have very many of them. I know a lot of people have like one for every color. I don't have anywhere to put that many of these. So if you have one for oxides and one for distress inks, which you should technically have different foam for the two inks because you don't want to mix those into each other. But yeah, so I just keep all of them in here, and that's what works for me. And then I've got some of the blending brushes, and I just have those in a couple different ways, different sizes. Are some I've gotten a tin, some I've gotten in one of those little silicone um, brush holders that works fairly well too. Do I keep the original die packaging? I think it just depends. Like Sizzix brand is most of my dies, and they come in. Let's just grab one here. It's like they come in like this really nice package. So I keep them in the packaging, and then I can see what's on there. If it's just depends on what company it's from. Sometimes I keep, trim off the top of it and stick it in a plastic sleeve with it. So yeah. but not it just depends on which one as far as whether I keep them. Flat foams or rounded foams? Um, the square there long time ago, there were square ones. The flat foam ones are like the OG for me, so, um, I that's what I have the most of, and I not I haven't thrown them out because they're still usable. So, I do have, some of the rounded ones, and, uh I don't have a huge difference between the 2 of them, but I do think the rounded ones are probably a little easier for a lot of people to use. I think it helps eliminate some of those harsh edges and lines that people can get. So if you're looking to invest in them at all, I'm probably would go with recommending the rounded ones. Tim's Trimmers. I'm trying to find a good way to store. Any suggestions? I use my paper trimmers and I've got 3 of them. And I have a little IKEA Rascog cart next to my crafting table, which is actually a kitchen table. And I keep the small, like the 8-inch trimmer in that on the bottom drawer there. My other 2 bigger trimmers, so I have the guillotine trimmer and the new rotary trimmer. And I actually were like right straight across in front of me. I have a IKEA dresser that's kind of like my die cutting station. So I have my die cutting machine and my paper trimmers on there. So I those are something I use so much that I don't store them. So they are out where I can get to them easy. All right. Well, thank you guys. These are some great questions. And if you have any more, you know, tag me in the comments and so I can see them. And if you're catching this on the replay, do the same. And yeah, thank you guys so much. This was awesome. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you on social media moving forward. So thanks again, everyone. Bye.